Hi everybody, Russ from My Hammers 11. Hope you're all safe and well. In a new venue today because housework's still going on. Hope everyone is safe and well. For new channel, please consider subscribing, hitting the bell icon so you're made aware of any time I put new content on. Today's guest, he's always on Twitter. It's Gants Hill Hammer. How you doing, Gants?
Yeah, I'm not at all bad, thanks, Russ. How are you doing?
Yeah,
Housework's all okay?
Yeah, not too bad actually. Hopefully, it should be finished by the end of this week. We'll see. But yeah, you don't realise how much you need a floor, and how much having a floor makes like a difference. Goes to the toilet and things like that. My wife and my daughter have moved out for the week now, so I would say it's a bachelor pad, but it's not really because I'm sort of stuck in one room. But hey ho, it feels like being a student again. But is what it is.
Yeah, those were the days, eh?
I know they were the days. God dear.
Countries have got no idea what we actually lived in. Well, certainly in my case, best part of 35, 40 years ago. So they've got no idea.
No idea. They're born these days. It's always like when I think when you think obviously the likelihood is we're going to another lockdown soon, but could you imagine, kids, my daughter's 8 and she doesn't know she's born really, because could you imagine us having a lockdown, without no Netflix, without no mobile phones, and oh my God, we'd be tearing each other's hair out, that's for sure.
Spent all our time either in the park or the street.
Exactly.
That was our method of entertainment.
Yeah, with a stick and a railing. That's all we needed.
Yeah.
So how are you? How's things been the last few months for you particularly?
Yeah, it's stressful. There's no point pretending it's stressful.
Yeah.
Everybody being at home is difficult. Not having football as an outlet, which is a big outlet for me. No question about that. I'm a home and away season ticket holder, so not having the ability to go away and vent my spleen and get the aggression or whatever it is out of my system has been difficult. So much so that in the end, the missus persuaded me to actually go away for a few days on my own with one of my mates, because she said, soon either I'm going to kill you or you're going to kill me. So one of us has to go away, and it's going to be you, because although my kids aren't kids, they're at home and they need someone's got to knows what they're doing, has got to look after them. And I don't know one side of the cooker from the other side of the cooker, so nothing to be proud of. So yes, it's been tough, and it wasn't a great start almost to lockdown, because unfortunately on the day we were playing Man City away 19th of Feb, which was like just at the start of all the kerfuffle, unfortunately my dad died that day. And I was just getting ready to go off to the game. I picked up the minibus. I was going with a few other people, Steve, Crystal, Tim, and we were off to, and a couple of others. We were off to go up to Manchester. I picked up the minibus. I got back and I got a phone call to say he died that morning. And I'd seen him on the camera. We'd installed cameras because he wasn't. My old man was 93 and riddled with cancer.
Oh, wow.
It's not like it was an unexpected thing, but it was still unexpected. So that was a bit of a kibosh to the start of the whole of the lockdown period, and it hasn't got any better yet. That's for sure.
No. Oh, jeez.
The only good thing is that West Ham managed to stay up.
Yes, they did.
It bothers me. I'm of an age where I've seen this so many times, having gone down, etc. It really doesn't bother me in the slightest.
Yeah.
It's no big deal for me to see us, playing whatever teams it might be, and the thought of possibly playing Millwall away would be quite exciting for people of my age group. And many other teams, not just them. There's a lot of good teams that are in the division below, teams that those of us that are watched football, particularly through the 70s and the 80s, teams that we remember well, that were old first division teams that, for whatever reason, have lost their way, and that's something that West Ham in particular needs to be very careful about.
No, totally.
Were we, God forbid, to get relegated, it's not quite the shoe-in that you're going to come straight back up again.
No, look at Leeds, isn't it? Look at Leeds. They're a classic
down
example.
For a long time. Look at Man City, how long they were down for. Sunderland, who looked like they completely lost the plot. There's a good few teams that were there or thereabouts and have now been out of it for a long time.
Yeah.
And the prospect of them actually getting back without, you know, a major change in ownership, etc., at those clubs.
Yeah.
You know, it's no longer even remotely a level playing field. There's no point in us kidding ourselves that it is a level playing field. You know, it's not. And that's ignoring whether we're well managed or not well managed. That's a red herring in the sense that there's still a huge gulf financially between 6 or 7, maybe 8 clubs and the rest of us.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that's ever going to be addressed.
I don't think it ever is. I don't know if it ever is, to be perfectly honest. I think it's now, unless, I mean, the only thing I could see, and it will never happen, is obviously if you look at Formula One, for example, they've now, you know, it was always, McLaren and flying, not McLaren, so Mercedes. God, how long was that ago? Mercedes flying high and stuff like that. Next year, I believe they're bringing in like a cap in terms of development costs. That's the only way that
they have it across the pond in more or less every sport now.
Yeah.
And to a degree, you sort of have it. I mean, I'm not someone who bets on horses or anything like that, but the little I understand of horse racing is that even in horse racing, each horse has some weight put on it in order to, in theory, make them an equal horse at the start of the race. You know, I don't pretend to know anything about that, but in relation to football here, you know, it's seemingly so easy to ignore financial fair play. Why West Ham ever mention it is beyond my comprehension, because no other club seems remotely concerned about it.
No,
so I don't know why it's an issue for us and no one else.
Well, it's just one of those things, isn't it? But I think you're right. I think there's such a gulf now in the game that, you know, you see exceptions to the rule, like Leicester were an exception to the rule in terms of winning the Premier League. That won't happen again because all the other all the big boys went, right, okay, we'll pull our socks up and spend a bit more money, and that will never happen again.
Yeah,
and we'll monopolise it. But you know,
it's very unusual to get 2 or more teams, you know, of the so-called Big 5, Big 6. I don't like to say Big 6 because I hate them scallywags of men 17 ever being included in that title. That's my polite description for them. Not really what I want to call them. So, you know, on that basis, that, you know, those clubs are clearly miles apart from us.
Yeah.
I don't believe that any owners should be expected to pump in tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of pounds. I actually don't think that's their requirement. I just think it needs to be run well. I mean, again, if I revert back to them scallywags N17, the guy who actually owns it, not Daniel Lee, but the guy who really owns it, hasn't pumped a penny in. It's a self-financed business, so it can be done if you run it properly. Unfortunately, our player selections and purchases of recent years have been below par. That's about the politest way I could describe.
I think it's fair enough. I think, you know, it all comes down to player recruitment, doesn't it? Really, and I think it always has done. You know, we've even, you look back at, you know, selling Joe Cole and Glenn Johnson for like 6 million. So, you know, it's not like it's something which has only happened overnight. It's been pandemic of West Ham for years.
We invested it so poorly. I think it's also partly that, I mean, you see Leicester, you see Southampton in particular. These are teams that when they sell a player for good money, they already know who it is they're going to be replacing him with for a fraction of the cost. And you're thinking, how is it that, I mean, I can't even think of many players that we bought. I'm not saying players that we didn't home grow, players that we bought and sold on and made a profit on.
Yeah,
it's like almost unheard of for us to do that.
Yeah, it is.
How is it that every other club can do it? Because that's how the Leicesters and the Southamptons and the Burnleys actually then have the money to go and be able to buy more players because they keep making player trading profits. Yeah. We seem to make player trading losses, which is a little bit of a worry.
Yeah, no, it's true. It is true. I mean, you look at, even Liverpool. I mean, you look at Liverpool. I mean, they did put a stat out the other day with Klopp, obviously, because he'd signed, obviously, Thiago and Jota. And it was something like across, it must have been the Klopp era, so to speak. I think they'd sold 650 million players and have purchased 660 million. So they only played 10 million more than they've sold, but they've won the title and got the you know, it is as you said, it's about how it's reinvested, isn't it? And you're right, Leicester it was something ridiculous, like 250 million pounds off their last 5-6 transfers or something ridiculous like that. And
I don't think we've sold a player at a profit yet.
No, I don't think we have. I don't think we ever have, to be honest. You know, I can't think of anyone.
That's a little bit wrong. And then also we then get on to all the rubbish about how just about every other club has always got clauses that when they sell on for even more, they get a kickback. We don't seem to do that either. It's like, for sophisticated people, allegedly, we don't seem to be doing anywhere near as well as I'd like us to be doing off the pitch. On the pitch, I can't blame them. You know, if the manager isn't playing the players to their best, or the system's not working, or you know, that's not their fault. But the off, you know, it's almost like we're failing on both parts of the footballing activity, and that's a little bit of a worry.
Yeah, and I mean, it is. I mean, someone was mentioning the other day. It's just something about West Ham, isn't it? I mean, it's you've got, like, you know, someone said the other day, might have been even Matt Lorenzo or something like that. He said, "Oh yeah, we won the World Cup, and we had three players in our side. We only finished 6th that season, you know." And it's like, you know, we haven't won anything, you know, major.
Well, the year that we got relegated away at Birmingham, when, funny enough, Gold and Sullivan were the owners there. In the lead up to that season, if you think of the players that West Ham had. We had Cole, we had Carrick, we had Lampard, we had Ferdinand, we had Glenn Johnson just came on the scene just after that. David, we had the backbone of the England team.
Yeah, we did.
Relegated, and until unfortunately Glenn Hoddle was replaced, we were truly awful. Our home record was beyond shocking. I mean, how any manager was allowed to stay in place, whatever unfortunately his health situation was.
Yeah.
Made no sense at all. We were absolutely awful with such quality players.
It's that, you know, obviously the too good to go down, you know, tag was put on that side. And you're right. I mean, funny enough, we had what was it? We had Tony Carr. We interviewed Tony Carr, and he put his 11 down of his academy stuff, right. And like, you know, it was his 11, and it was basically the England team. And that 2010, I think it's that 2010 World Cup.
The 90s team,
yeah. I think the 2010 World Cup, I think a third of the squad had come through the academy, which was just shocking when you think about it. And you're right. It's just it's just pandemic of being a West Ham fan, and I think that's why. I think that's why, you know, West Ham fans are like they are. I think if we had, I don't think we'd be the same group of fans if we were a Man City or were a Liverpool, turning over teams every week. That's not what we're about. It is about those 3 or 4 times a season that they turn up, and for the other, you know, 20 odd games, you're going, why the fuck is this team not turning up again? You know, but and that's why we, you know, it's like someone said they said their kid was being a bit, you know, wobbly in case he might want to go and support Liverpool, and his dad encouraged him to keep supporting West Ham because he said it's character building, and that is so true. That is so true.
I mean, my 3 kids have all been mascots, home and away.
Wow.
I can remember my eldest one, who's now about to turn 31, being mascot at Sunderland away on her first day at high school, and I took her out of her first day at secondary school and took her all the way up to Sunderland to be mascot. And I can remember taking her in the next day with a letter to the head teacher, and then getting a phone call about, you know, how and why I'd done that. I said it's part of her development as a character. You know, she needed to understand that, you know, it wasn't just about school. There were other things that she needed to know about. And I'm a firm believer. My next one down, you know, I think she lived through 2 West Ham relegations in her formative, you know, early adulthood, childhood. And I remember coming to me saying, "Oh, would it be okay if I followed another team?" And like a lot of people my age group, we've all got friends. I mean, I've got a lot of friends who support, teams like Leeds, etc., who've been in the Dolphins for Dodgers, and they allowed their kids to support other teams. And I remember saying, there was a girl, this one, I remember saying to her, yeah, of course you can support another team. Where are you moving to? And she looked at me. She was all about 9 at the time. She was very perplexed. And she went to Mum. She said, Daddy says I'm moving. And Mum said, well, what did you discuss with him? She said, I discussed supporting another football team. She said, there are no other football teams allowed in this house. It's not like our friends where, Daddy supports Tottenham or Arsenal, God forbid, or Leeds, and one of the kids supports another team and they've got the bed linen and all that. It won't happen in our house. It's a non-starter. So go back to your dad and just tell him you've changed your mind, you want to continue to support West Ham, and there'll be no more conversation about where you're moving to. And that's how it is in my house. There is it's not up for debates.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it.
And it is character building in a sense, particularly which my children thankfully have had to a great degree, everything on a plate for them. It's nice for them to realise actually not everything in this world is on a plate, and it's helped ground them and realise that they do need to have some social and moral principles, because it isn't just, oh yes, we deserve to win, we expect to win because we're united, as bless them, the Manchester fans like to call themselves. And that's important for me.
Yeah,
for them
I totally get that.
Right.
Yeah, no, it is, and that is right.
With the players, I'm more concerned whether they try. I don't, I grew up through watching the 70s and the 80s teams in particular, and certainly into the early 90s with some shocking teams. Absolutely, truly awful team. All that mattered, with someone like Ian Down, did he try? I didn't care whether he was good, bad, or indifferent. Did he try? That was all that mattered. Did he show that he cared playing for the shirt and the badge? And he did. And there were many other players. Not even saying I can remember them all. I'm too much of an old fart to remember everything. But these players really put an effort in. Too many of the players that we watch nowadays, and it's not their price tag that I'm bothered about, because every player's got a price tag that makes no sense. You just look at them, you're thinking, you're not even trying. You're not even trying. I mean, you can remember even players, let's say Ian Wright, when he came to play for us in his twilight years, etc. You'd watch him chase a ball back. He wouldn't just, I'm standing, by the penalty box or the half yard. He would run after a ball that he'd lost. And you see, I don't want to knock Hallow or any of the current players. They just don't want to put that effort in. And that's the bit that annoys me. I don't care whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. I'd like them just to show that they actually care and want to put a shift in.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, that's the thing that comes across when you interview everyone. It is that I don't know if it's just a West Ham thing or just a fan in general for their club, but you assume that if they put a shift in, as you said, they don't have to be the most skillful player in the world, but if they try, it's not their fault if they're not skillful, but they've been put into this position. But as long as they're, and I think, and I think in recent, in terms of particularly the last two signings, in terms of Bowen and Souček, you've got two guys who have that mentality, it seems. You know what I mean? It's like Bowen from it's like British, sort of, he's playing more right back, to be honest, at the moment than right wing. And Souček, he just seems to have the right work ethic. He just seems to really sort of
exactly the two words, work ethic.
Yeah.
Far too many players, and you see them not even just on the pitch. When you read about what they get up to in their personal, private lives, you're thinking, really? You don't understand that's not acceptable behaviour? It's that it just pervades their whole character. Yeah. And that is a little bit worrying. And there are other players like that always put a shift in, for whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. Robbie Snodgrass in particular. There's a few players, Mark Noble, Declan, they'll always show, even if they cock it up. They're not just, that's it, I've given up, I'm not, you know that Mark's legs are gone, in a race against the tortoise is probably going to win, unfortunately, nowadays. But you can't fault his commitment. No. Yeah? It's not his fault if he's getting picked every week and he's not performing to everyone's expectations. They're seeming to ignore how old he is and the speed of everyone around him. You can't blame the player, blame the manager and whoever's brought the squad together for not putting a squad together that can actually put him under pressure and actually say to him, you know what, you're really now a player who only does half a game. You come on halfway or you start halfway, but you aren't going to last 90 minutes any longer.
Yeah, that makes
you can't blame the players for that. Same with when I read the criticism of Snodgrass, it's not his fault. Not his fault at all. If he shouldn't be with us, then that's again down to the manager and the owners to have sorted it out. Not for the manager to be, well, actually, he's the only fit player in that position who's actually going to do what I'm asking him to do.
Yeah. No, totally. Totally.
It's a bit like, when Fabianski first came in, I was really impressed with him. For the first season or so, he definitely was saving us 10 goals a season. Unfortunately, he's become, certainly since his injuries where he was brought back far too early, he's no longer quite what he was. But again, he's got no real competition. So there's nothing to push him to make him be even better. Unless he's genuinely injured or we're in, one of the cup games that regrettably most football clubs, I can't even blame the West Ham manager and owners for that. Most of the middle and lower ranking Premiership teams do not give a monkeys about the League Cup, as I would call it, or the FA Cup, even though they don't seem to understand that for us fans, that's the most likely route to getting a piece of silverware and the most likely route to Europe. Now, we're not going to get a day out at Wembley at the moment, probably, but that's neither here nor there. If we actually want a bit of silverware and we want to get into Europe, those are the two routes. But it seems to be that the only thing that matters now is staying in the Premiership. That's it. That's the be all and end all. That's our life. Don't stay up in the Premiership. If we get knocked out tonight, won't make a jot of difference because it will mean that we've got less games to worry about. But fans, certainly of my age group, and I'm sure that's not only our age group, that's not what we're interested in.
No, it's not. It's not. You're right. You're totally right. And I think it's as you said, it's indicative of the modern game, isn't it? Now that the money in the Premier League is so big that clubs, not just us, every club bar the top six can't afford to be out the Premier League, and so it is their priority. And it's weird because obviously you think, that the FA Cup is a bit in terms of, obviously we've got Hull in the next round, and then after that, I think the next round after that isn't until late December, and which is a bizarre way it's been set up. But actually, you think about it, if they all just moved the games a little bit later on, bar the FA Cup, for example, FA Cup's in January, bar January, roughly what your season's going to be like. Bar a complete catastrophe. If you're sort of, so then you can see, but obviously the League Cup starts so early that people are just scared about getting injuries and so early on in the season. It's just, I think it's the way, I think it's how it's been scheduled. I think if it was scheduled slightly later, you would actually obviously have more games to play, but I think you get a higher caliber because I think people would, as you said, have a go at it because they know what their season's going to be looking like. And but
the big teams, certainly the Chelseas of this world, who've actually got probably not even two teams, but three teams in there, almost in their squad. If it wasn't for the fact there was a limit to the squad size, they'd probably have an American football type team type size squad, and that wouldn't be an issue for them. That they've almost got two teams, and Man City's not much different. I'm not saying that Liverpool or Arsenal have actually got two lots of 11s, but they've certainly got maybe 19 out of the 22 players that they would need. So it's not an issue. Whereas, a team like West Ham, we've barely got 14 or 15 players. Everyone else that's there is not really a first choice player. They're there because there isn't anyone else. And they're not real competition. And we know they're not real competition. We see it, dare I say it, with our left and right backs and to a degree with our central defenders. There is no competition for them. Who's actually going to come in for Cresswell? Well, what comes in is actually not a replacement left back, but a left winger stroke left wing back. So we play Cresswell and Masuaku. Same with Fredericks. So we don't actually replace them. We put yet another player next to them, as well as rather than, here's some proper competition for you.
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
And that's where it's sort of like, okay, why are we not able to find and have actual replacements that can come in and can put them under proper pressure?
I don't know. I haven't got the answer, but yeah. No,
I mean, it was interesting. I think I saw a tweet this morning about how many players are out of contract at the end of this summer, the end of this season. So, in June. There's an awful lot, 8 current first team players, of which 5 or 6 are starting players, are out of contract at the end of this season.
Interesting.
That's an awful lot of players that we need to replace. And I'm thinking, right, okay, how are we going to go about doing that? Because even if we save their wages, which are then matched by the wages of the player coming in, none of these players have got any resale value as far as I can tell, bar possibly Cullen. You've got Noble's contract is up, Snodgrass's contract is up. I think Martin's contract up, although I wouldn't say he's obviously a regular first team. There's far too many players that we're going to have to replace between now and June. I just wonder where that's going to happen from.
It'd be interesting, but then it might be an opportunity to, because I mean, as you said, all those players you mentioned, they're all in their 30s, one in their 30s. It might give us, we can see, we've interviewed like Kevin Keane, obviously under 18s. There's a lot of good youngsters coming through. But now's the time we need to put them in, and work with them rather than stick with the older guys who are not going to maybe here after June, and give these guys a bit of a run out straight away so they get used to what it's like to be a West Ham first teamer. But who knows, Gants? I have no idea.
I mean, at the moment, in some ways, that one of the things that I've often read about is for a player to come in at 18 or 19 and play in front of 30 or 40,000, let alone 50 to 60,000, is a very daunting, change from playing in an under 18 or under 20 game where there might be 50 or 100 people watching them. But we're playing in an empty stadium at the moment. Now would be a prime opportunity to let them, okay, I'm in a huge stadium, but I haven't got 20,000 people screaming at me. What the 4X am I doing? I don't know why we don't seem to flood the younger players often. It's always, well, let's put them out on loan somewhere. Let's put them out and they're like continually out on loan. Either they're good enough or they're not good enough. You can't. I mean, Cullen's a prime example. He's not like he's a youngster. He's 3 years older than Declan.
Yes.
So at the moment, either he's good enough or he's not good enough. Give him a chance. Give him not one game in the cup. Give him 3 or 4 league games. Let him make his mistakes and see if he. But we're so petrified. Oh, we can't afford to take the risk of getting relegated. Well, everyone seems to think we're going to get no points anyway for the next 4 or 5 games. So where's the harm? Oh well, we'll damage his mental state, etc. We play him and we get stuffed by Wolves or Man City or whoever it might be. I'd still do it. I'd still give the players a chance.
Yeah, no, it's true.
I mean, if a player's any good, how old is Rashford? How old are these players? If they're good enough, they'll produce. If they're not good enough, well, then we're wasting our time thinking they're going to be good enough and they're going to come through. So whether it's the under 18s or the under 23 development squad or whatever it is, we actually need to be playing 1 or 2 of these players now, and seeing what they're really like. Particularly if someone like Johnson at either left back or right back, to actually make Cresswell or Fredericks realise that they've got some genuine competition. Instead of saying, oh well, they've got Premier League experience and that's why we're picking them. That's not a grounds for picking them just because they've got Premier League experience. They need to actually be capable. And we don't seem to. There's so many things that make no sense to most people looking in. I mean, last weekend's game's a prime example. yeah, we controlled the second half. We had numerous chances. But most of those chances were particularly crosses from Masuaku. The obvious player that should be on the end of them is Haller, and he gets brought on only once we conceded a second goal. Forget whether their goal was dodgy or not dodgy. Most the big six seem to get an awful lot of dodgy goals. Never ever question. Forget VAR not actually giving it our way. It doesn't even go to VAR. And you're thinking, well, it's supposed to go to VAR as a matter of course, and it doesn't seem to. And you're like, well, why doesn't it go to VAR? I'd accept if VAR said, no, it's wrong. It's almost like it doesn't go to VAR because they know that if it did, they'd have to disallow it or give West Ham the advantage, whichever way round it might be. I mean, they have a penalty that is under the rules 100% that we should have got. And they also have a goal that was probably that was offside. But no one gives a monkeys about these things.
No, it's weird, isn't it?
What I don't understand is why we as the club don't play. I mean, one of the things that's often interesting when you watch a game is whenever the other team concede a free kick against us, they'll stand a player in front of that ball so that we cannot take a free kick. Okay? No quick free kicks. They'll stand. Every team will do that almost without fail. We don't dream of doing that. That kind of, I'm not saying it's good or bad, behaviour. Like a lot of things that I don't find enjoyable about modern football and a lack of respect generally. But we just don't have any game management or how they still hassle the referee, give a yellow card, give a free kick, whatever. We don't appeal. We just walk away. We're just not in our DNA. We just roll over and accept all of that kind of rubbish. And that's
we've always been seen to be a bit of a soft touch, really, haven't we? I think in at West Ham in general. But I mean, I've noticed since Nolan's come in, we've been a little bit more nastier, and not nastier, but a bit more, like Antonio. You'll see him do the Kevin Nolan corner routine where he just stands and plonks himself in front of the keeper, and he can't push him around or get around him. But I know what you mean. It's like. Actually watching that our friends in 3 Point Lane's documentary Amazon thing, that's what Mourinho's trying to get them to do, is be more nastier, be a bastard, and I just think it's ingrained in some teams' DNA. So Arsenal were always petulant and they always moaned, and you're right, we just don't do that enough, do we?
I mean, so it was probably a couple of seasons ago. We won away at Southampton, I think on Boxing Day or just before Boxing Day or something like that. Yeah. And we were absolutely fantastic, really fantastic. We went up to Burnley and they completely took the pee out of us, lying on the floor, feigning injury. It was embarrassing to watch. And you're thinking, like, which West Ham player is actually going to stand up and actually do a Billy Bonds or a Julian Dix or even a Marco Boogers, and actually take one of their players out correctly within and let them know we're not having this piss taking. No, we just get rolled over repeatedly, kicked all over the place with them feigning injury and falling over. And okay, we'll just put up with that. And that's the kind of thing that, I mean, certainly for people like me, you start to wonder, do I really enjoy football? I mean, I don't watch any other team. I have absolutely no interest in watching any other team playing bar England. Doesn't interest me at all. People say to me, "Oh, come down." Well, forget you can't come down the pub now. And certainly I will be laughing next week on Monday when the Gooners and the Scousers have to get kicked out because the game hasn't finished yet, but pub hasn't.
Yes, good point. Yeah, 10 o'clock. Yeah.
That will be quite funny. Yeah, but we're only in the 85th minute. Well, I'm really sorry, lads. You've got to go now. I mean, it wouldn't interest me in the slightest. I have no desire to watch any other team, which, of course, then means that when you say, "Oh, what do you think of so-and-so team?" No idea. Got no idea. Unless I've watched him play against West Ham, I don't know who you're talking about. So when people say, like on Twitter, "Oh, we're looking at signing so-and-so, particularly from a European team," I say, "Well, okay, I'll go and speak with one of my 18 or 19-year-old relatives because he's playing, PS or whatever." still know who the player is. I ain't got a Scooby-Doo, and I'm not looking him up on YouTube. I'm not interested. You know, in fact, I often rely upon. He's now about 14, the little boy. I often rely upon him and say, okay, have you heard of this player? What's he like?
What's his stats? Yeah.
I don't know who he is. You know, I'm almost like the Carlos Kickable from Alan Sugar from about 25 years ago type mentality. Bit stuck in the mud, unfortunately, for my own good.
No, it's not. As you said, you're right. It's like some people, you know, as you said, same as me. I only know some players because they're on FIFA. You know, it's like, oh, I've heard of him. He's quite good. But no, yeah, it is. I mean, it's just. It is what it is with West Ham, innit? And that's why we support them, because, like, I've been funny, you know, we could have a 35-minute discussion about West Ham, and it's felt like 5 minutes quickly already. You know, you can just go on and on. That's the great thing about West Ham, and that's why I like doing this show, because everyone has their own opinions and everyone has their own or ways of looking at things and stuff like that, and it's really interesting. I just like listening. So I find it. I think
it also depends on what decade in particular you start.
Totally,
You know, I mean, I first got taken over West Ham when I was about 7, just into the 1970s. So, I mean, I remember watching Clyde Best only because, rightly or wrongly, it was obvious there's a black player on the pitch. And he was a quality player. Got nothing to do with anything else. He was a quality player. I mean, I watched the very end of Bobby Moore playing. I can't remember him at all. I'd be lying if I said I could remember him playing, because I don't. I don't remember him at all. I don't remember Hurst or Peters playing for West Ham, even though I did start to see them right at that particular period of time. My abiding memory of Bobby Moore is seeing him playing for Fulham against West Ham in the Cup final. You know, that's what I remember of Bobby Moore. And I think, I'm trying to think, was it Mullery that was playing for Fulham as well, if my memory serves me correctly?
I believe so, yeah.
You know, that's my memory of it. I really only start remembering players from about 75, 76 onwards. Before then, you know, when I started going, you know, when I went to secondary school and I started going, instead of with a friend of one of my parents, or my brother actually, really, I started going with 2 kids from school. I really don't remember anything before then. So I remember 75, 76 onwards. And that's about it. You know, before that period, you know, I may have seen those players, but it means absolutely nothing to me. No. You know, I couldn't honestly put any of those players in a team because I don't know them.
No, it's fair enough.
I don't know in the sense that I don't consciously remember them playing.
Yes.
And that's something that, you know, what I do remember is that when I first got taken over West Ham were almost the nearly team. You know, what people forget is that through the 60s in particular, everyone remembers who wins something. They may remember who was the losing finalist. What they won't remember is the teams that got to the semi-finals and actually didn't progress.
Yeah.
You can see how many times West Ham were there or thereabouts in the 60s. It's only because, you know, I was taken to the game by someone who's, you know, maybe he's about 7, 8 years older than me. That well, West Ham win the semi-final for this, and okay, if you say so. You know, and in those days, which was very common, certainly when I was 7, 8, 9, you know, I watched West Ham one week and Leyton Orient the other week.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
You know, one week I was watching West Ham home, the other week I watched Orient at home. So I can remember people like Laurie Cunningham over there, etc., and Tommy Taylor playing at Orient as much as I can remember him playing at West Ham. So it's interesting that, you know, nowadays. Everyone's, I've only got, you know, that team. I wouldn't dream of going to watch, you know. Whereas, you know, if Orient are playing and West Ham aren't playing, I'll still happily go over there and watch them. Yeah. You know, because I've still got some affection, and forget all the nonsense about the Olympic Stadium, etc. That's just business. That's got sod all to do with football.
Yeah.
You know, I enjoy watching those kind of teams. First of all, it's much more realistic. I mean, you can actually hear the players and the manager shouting at the players, etc. You can actually hear what's going on.
Yes.
I mean, certainly at our new stadium, but even at Upton Park, you didn't have a clue what was going. You can't hear. Whereas again, when I was a kid and I was right down the front of the North End, you could hear the players. You could hear what was being said to each other. Those are memories that will always stay with me.
Yeah,
those are great times. And again, nothing to do with the football, albeit that again in my formative years, when I was 14, 15, West Ham walking away with the second division. I mean, that was a phenomenal season to be following West Ham. We were just absolutely walking away with the second division. We won the FA Cup. Should really have been 2-0 if it wasn't for that dirty Arsenal scumbag defender. It's nowadays I go because of the people I know.
Yeah, of course. Football, it's secondary. It is secondary, though. It is secondary. You're right. I've got a
friend who now lives overseas, who's still got his season ticket at West Ham, even though he don't live here. I think one of his grown-up grandchildren actually uses it. He actually stopped going even into Upton Park. He just said, I can't take all the people around me who seem to have delusions of grandeur. They seem to forget where I am. I don't know why they think we're going to beat, Arsenal or Man United or Man City. It's not going to happen. It might happen, but it's not likely to. But it's the expectation of it. Everyone said, we should be. Why should we be a team competing with the top 5 or 6? Be honest. Look at our squad and look at their squads and say, it's yes, I know Leicester won the league. They won the league in a season in which at least 3, if not 4, of the normal top 5 completely failed. I mean, look where we could have finished.
Yeah.
Had we pushed on in January, etc., we've got no idea how to develop as a club.
That's true.
Don't know how when that's ever going to change. Because it's not just this owners; it's been several owners that we've had.
It's been pandemic. It's pandemic, isn't it? Wrong word, but yeah,
it's in our DNA. I think.
Yes.
As the song goes, our dreams.
I mean, we've set our stall out already, haven't we? To be honest, with that song, it's not like it's a war chant song. It's one of the things about fading and dying. So, we've put ourselves up for a fall anyway there. But talking about the players, let's crack on with your 11 because I'm interested about this. So, obviously, the only caveat is you have to be alive to have seen them play. So, and that's it. That's the only caveat. You can pick whoever you want.
For me, starting in goal, it would be Phil Parks. I mean, we've had plenty of decent goalkeepers since. At least one of my kids will be vitally disappointed I haven't said Shaka Hislop because she had I'd say a crush on him, an adolescent teenage crush on him. But we've had plenty of other decent goalkeepers, David James, etc. I'll probably not remember all of them, but for me, again, because of the year of 78, 79, 80, remembering how much we paid for Phil Parks in those days, etc. He was a big sign and he made an enormous difference. And again, that's not knocking a player like Ludo. McCloskey was also a quality player for us. So we've had some decent goalkeepers. We have had some nightmares, McKnight in particular, bless him. But I don't want to dwell on those players that weren't quite as good as they could have been. But he was a top goalkeeper for me.
Yeah, he was, and a cracking guy as well.
And then I would have a back 5 starting with a sweeper, and that would be Rio Ferdinand, who by the time he left West Ham was without doubt, as Harry regularly called him, a role because he really was genuinely world class. And, whether sending him, I think it was 18 million to Leeds, which at the time that was around the time of the whole thing about the Bosman free transfers, etc. Was that going to be the end of transfer fees, etc.? We all know that that's not remotely true.
No.
But Rio Ferdinand, even at that point in time, was definitely genuinely world class before he left. And that's relevant because there's several players that I haven't included. Michael Carrick, Frank Lampard Jr., etc., who were or went on to become world-class players, but weren't necessarily at that stage when they left West Ham.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Frank Lampard, and I take my hat off him, even though I absolutely abuse him when I see him, is without doubt one of the best players I've ever seen playing in English football. Certainly at England level, and for them scum from Stamford Bridge. But not whilst he was good at West Ham, but he wasn't there long enough to actually prove his worth. So Rio Ferdinand at the back. At left back, we go back to Frank Lampard Snr, who was a quality left back. If only we could actually get someone of that kind of ilk again. I mean, Julian Dix is only narrowly pushed out by Frank Lampard. But, I know that Julian is a cult hero for many fans, but actually that's more in their mind than actually on the pitch. Now, he was a great penalty taker, which is reflected by my right back, which is Ray Stewart, who I think was probably an even better penalty taker.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, Ray had the coolest, situation. Every time we had a penalty, you really just assumed it was a goal. With Julian Dix and with Mark Noble. And I mean, I'm no stato, but if you look through the stats of our players all the way back to that kind of era forward, these players were always our second or third highest goal scorer. Ray Stewart, Julian Dix, Mark Noble, not our strikers, but the person taking the penalties for us. I'd finish off our defence with stretch with Alvin Martin, and I would have alongside him Billy Bonds. I know that, again, people slightly older than me would have seen him as a midfielder, but I predominantly saw him as one of our hearts. And that, to me, were the two. Now, I've seen plenty of other players over the years, Thomas Repka, Slaven Bilic, loads of other players that have been really good in their time. But these two in particular, long-serving, constantly performed. I mean, Billy Bonds was and will always remain my West Ham hero. I mean, he was just absolutely the man on the pitch. I mean, anyone who watched West Ham in the 70s and the early 80s, etc., he took no prisoners. If a player of ours, which is the point I was making earlier on, if a Burnley player was to do something to one of our players today and Billy Bonds was playing, he would run the length of the pitch to make sure that he got a tackle in and they knew that their card was marked.
Yeah.
We don't have a player that does that anymore.
Nah. But I don't think you do that. I don't think you have that in the modern game. You don't get those hard boys anymore. You don't get those. Even after Billy, you had the Vieiras, the Roy Keanes. You just don't get hard man anymore now, do you? And
you get midfielders, etc., that are prepared to
put so, yeah.
Out. We don't. I mean, and that's not knocking someone like Mark.
No.
But no one is actually intimidated by him in the slightest way.
No.
Even if he does pick up a player and take him off the pitch,
yes.
no one's really intimidated by him.
No.
No one's actually going to be bothered by, Mark Noble's going to come in with a crunching tackle.
No, I know. Yes, I agree.
Players like John Moncur, etc. I mean, always used to make me laugh. In the early advent of in-match betting, and it was like, how long till John Moncur gets a red card? You're thinking, what bookmaker hasn't twigged that he's going to get a red card within the first minute if he hasn't started the game? Here's a surefire bet. All these people, I see people on Twitter going saying, 9-2 for so-and-so to get a yellow card. Get a bet on John Moncur every single game. No question.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't give it on him.
No, we wouldn't give idiots. Yeah, it's trouble.
So that's our defence. Into our midfield. Well, again, I suspect people will be more concerned by some of the players I've missed out. I haven't included Trevor Booking, as fantastic as he was. And again, I saw him through most of his prime. In now, despite the fact that many people think that he left in a terrible way, Dimitri Payet, whose quality was just world-class in that season. Yeah. Absolutely world-class. I'm not going to comment on, whether the method of his departure, because one could say the same about Paul Ince. I can't imagine there'll be anyone who will pick Paul Ince in a West Ham midfield. But actually, if you took your specs off and actually said, was he a quality player? No question. He was a top player, Paul Ince. But again, whilst he was at West Ham, a bit like going back to Lampard Jr. and Carrick and Joe Cole, who's not in my midfield either. I mean, we've had an awful lot of really good players, but they've developed, if I say it, unfortunately, after they've left West Ham.
Yeah.
Alongside Dimitri Payet would be my other West Ham hero, which is Alan Devonshire.
Yeah.
A man so underrated by those who didn't actually watch him play. If you remember what the pitches were like in the era in which he played and the injury that he suffered, the man was truly, absolutely top notch. And again, it's only people in their 50s and their 60s who will tell you, yes, Devo really was one of the best players that we ever had.
Oh, definitely.
And alongside them, being that I'm generally on the view that we're going to score more goals than you because we've got a decent defence and goalkeeper, I would have Yossi Benayoun.
Oh.
Now, he was a player, again, that if you actually watched him play, like Payet, like Devonshire, just created chance after chance after chance. And it's I'm from that era where I want to watch enjoyable football. I don't want to watch, I mean, with the greatest respect to David Moyes, you know, our first game at home to Newcastle, you look at our midfield and you're thinking, right, you don't want to concede a goal. Not you want to score a goal, you just don't want to concede a goal. Mate, we're playing at home to Newcastle. We're not playing at home to Manchester City, who might rip us a new hole. With the great respect, so they got one decent player probably. That's it. So why are we playing so negatively? So I'm very much of the era of wanting to play attractive football, and that's where it would come. It would come from that midfield.
Nice.
Benayoun, Payet and Devonshire. And then up front, because he was my hero, because he scored 4 goals away at the Slags, David Cross, no question about it. If you need a target man, he was your player. There were so many other strikers that I've seen that I've enjoyed watching. Pop Robson, John Hartson, Paul Goddard, again going back to the late 70s, early 80s. But David Cross was, as far as I was concerned, the target striker that we needed. And alongside him, well, there could be no one else but Paolo Di Canio. I mean, that man was another footballing genius. I'd love him to come back and actually manage West Ham, as crazy as he clearly is. And I'd ignore his vile political views or apparent political views. Maybe they're not even true, who knows. But that man was truly a footballing genius to watch. The man was just, out there. And again, there's been lots of other players that, I've thought about, having gone back and looked at what the teams were all the way back when I can consciously remember from 73, 74 forward. But that would be my starting 11 of the players I've watched.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Oh, Gants, that was fun. I mean, I think that's. Do you know what? I love the fact that. I love the fact that sort of the midfield, particularly, it's like, you've been really brutally honest, and I really like that, because you're right. Actually, people like Lampard Jr. and Carrick and stuff. You're right. They developed into world-class players after they left West Ham, and that's right. And that's another, and I like it because it's a different way of looking at it, because it's a generational thing as well. And I think it's brilliant. It's really interesting. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying that I wouldn't have picked them.
No, of course not.
I'm not picking them because whilst they were at West Ham, they weren't at the level they were.
Yeah.
Or became, should I say? And they truly became. There's no question about it. I mean, I've ignored Jermaine Defoe, who was a quality. I mean, ignore his throwing his toys out the pram again at Birmingham away, etc. Because that's no different to, let's say, Ince's situation. They're all young, they're impressionable, they're led by. I mean, look at Jeremy leaving us at the end of last season.
Yeah,
poorly advised.
Yeah,
simple as that. They all think that they're going to get whatever it is that they want, immediately, because that's the way they've now been indoctrinated, as opposed to realising, okay, maybe I have got to wait 6 months or a year, except to improve myself.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of, I mean, someone like Trevor Sinclair, another quality player that I so much enjoyed watching. And, Joker, there are so many players over the years that I have enjoyed watching that haven't unfortunately made the team. I could easily do a second 11. I'd be
easy.
almost as impressed with the second 11 as I was with the first 11. But alas, unlike when I was debating this team with my Gooner friend, in fact, those people who were on Twitter would have noticed that I had to actually buy the beers that night. I was in the late 90s, 1998, 99, 2000. I was trying to find out whether there was ever a period of time whether Lampard, Carrick, Defoe and Cole all played together, because Ferdinand had already just left. And the three of them played, but at different times, but never all four. So it was quite interesting to see that they were there, but they didn't actually play, all of them. And you think, wow, what a team that we must have had, and yet we still got relegated with it. So, and we got some decent money for them. I mean, we think about, Glenn Johnson. We got £6 million for him after one season, I think.
Not even that. I think he played like a dozen games, 15 games, something like that for us, I think, as well. So it wasn't too bad. And £6 million a day would not be considered, even with the super inflated transfer prices, that would still be considered a reasonable sum of money. So think about what we got for our players then, and then of course you could always have your worst 11. That would invariably involve players that we signed from Arsenal. They were nearly always absolutely shocked. The only one that would be an exception to that rule, and again I didn't include him because in his period for West Ham he was no longer at the top, was Liam Brady, who was without doubt up there with Trevor Brooking, with Devonshire, certainly as far as I'm concerned, a masterclass player. But we signed him at the end of his career, etc. Barely saw him, So there have been some decent players, but they're at the twilight of their career and they haven't played. They tend to be, though, don't they? They tend to be, and I think that's why historically we've never really made profit on transfers, because we tend to get the players at the bookends of their career. I always call it, rather just coming in or just coming out. I
mean, the one piece of advice I would give to the people that run our club is never ever sign a player that's been at Arsenal who's actually done more than 7 or 8 years there. The only player that was the exception to that rule was John Hartson, who'd only been there a couple of years. True. Every other player that we've had has been an unmitigated disaster, or they're already at the end of their career. I mean, the other players that we signed that were decent, Winterburn, people forget he played for us and how decent he was for us. And we've had some decent left backs and right backs that have been at the end of their career. But they have been at the end of their career, and we've only, Stewart's another one. I can't remember exactly how many seasons he played for us, and I certainly remember him playing on, I think, with a broken leg, if my memory serves me correctly, in one of the games. Our players, if they damage a toe, can't play allegedly. A completely different world to how it used to be.
It is a different world now. Football is a different world, unfortunately. As you said, the money in it, and players don't hang around for more than a couple of years now. And I mean, you look at that team. You got Alvin, you got Bonzo. I mean, double testimonial years for them. And but you don't get that nowadays. And I think that's the trouble, because I think you get people from a more experienced generation, we'll call it, who lived through that time, We interviewed like Gailey, and every year Gailey was at West Ham was a testimonial year for a player. And so, the experienced fans come from that area. The less experienced fans, the younger fans, come from an era where it's 2-3 years. If you get more than 3 years out of a player, they become a legend, and I think that's the trouble. You get these
legend.
Exactly. It's the most overused word, and then they become a legend, but they don't become a legend because then they go to our friends in N17. You go, well, how can he be a legend, but he can't be a legend? And I don't know. Yeah, but that's why I like this show. It's just debate. Everyone has a different views and stuff. And that's what I love about it. But it's been great. You know, literally an hour has flown by without really blinking. So thank you.
Well,
thank you so
to us. I've really enjoyed it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Think, about all the different players I've seen over the many decades that I've actually watched us. It's been good. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a great experience.
Thank you so much.
Anyone watching, I recommend that you contact Russ. If you haven't already participated, get on his YouTube channel and volunteer to take part.
Thanks, Gants. The envelope's in the post. So thank you, and obviously thanks everyone for watching as well, or listening, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcast or Amazon Music thing, whatever it is. As Gants says, make sure you go on, check it, like, subscribe, watch them all. We've got some, and also keep donating, guys, to the Iron Supporting Food Banks. We hope to raise £20,000 by the end of September. We're about 18.5 grand, so hopefully we'll be able to do it by then. And until next time, for me and Gants Hill Hammer, take care, everyone. Stay safe. Come on, you irons, and we'll see you again. Come on, you irons, and we'll see you again very, very soon.